welcome to Fearless Money Management, where we empower women to take control of their finances. I'm Claire Strong, and today we're chatting with financial expert Lisa Risser. Hi Lisa, how are you?
Hi. Good, how are you?
I am good. I like you in green. For our viewers that are
Thank
watching
you.
us on YouTube, that's a really good color on you.
Thank you.
I
Thank
love
you.
it. It's funny because Lisa and I were managing our dogs this morning because I have three. I'm just not good at fostering, so I have three foster fails. And you have not a foster fail, but he's adopted too, isn't he?
He's adopted too. Yes, yes.
And that brings us nicely on to what we're discussing today, actually, which is tracking our expenses. Another good one for me because I struggle with this a little bit. Why, first of all, do we even need to track our expenses, Lisa? Why is it so important?
Well, it's really important to track our expenses because actually it's quite surprising where we might be spending our money. And if we don't track it, we're not going to know maybe some hidden expenses or maybe how much we're really spending on that cup of coffee every day. And we know that it's so easy to spend however much money we have. And it doesn't matter even your income level, whether, you're living paycheck to paycheck or you have a nice, comfortable income, there's still a lot more in your expenses of what you're spending than I'm sure that people realize.
So this is very interesting because my husband is really good at this. I would go as far as to call my husband a little anal when it comes to tracking our finances. But in the same breath, I'm very grateful for him because my first husband was not very good at this. It didn't end very well for us, which is one of the reasons I guess I'm not married to him anymore. But my husband, he tracks our finances. We have a financial meeting every month. And it's funny because I do appreciate the fact he does that. It makes me a little uncomfortable because it really forces you to actually be very honest about your spending habits. And I'll also be honest that this is something that I would probably not do naturally because I don't know, sometimes I'm a bit of an ostrich when it comes to this type of thing because I think especially when, you haven't had a lot of money maybe or finances have been very tight, it's almost like you don't want to look at them. But then, flip side, I guess that by doing this and forcing ourselves to track our spending and our finances, we are actually empowering ourselves, which is what this podcast is all about, isn't it?
It is. This is all about empowering women to really, as you said, instead of being that ostrich, really get in there and take a look at your finances and really better manage them. And we have to think about not just our short term, but our long term. We need to be able to save and invest for our future and for the future of our children. So it is really important. And it's so much more impactful when you track your expenses than you even can begin to realize if you haven't done it before.
Okay, so let's assume we haven't done this before because I'll be honest, I haven't really done this before because my husband does it. And so where would I even start?
Well, I would start with just getting your checking account statements, which you can get online, and your credit card statements. Pretty much everything is probably going to be sitting in one or either one of those. I mean, especially since COVID, we don't really pay much with cash anymore. Almost everything is with a debit card or a credit card. And so it's all easily tracked. So I would pull those out, pull them out for the last few months and take a look at them, get them in front of you, and you can just get a piece of paper and a pen and just start writing down what your expenses are on average every month and categorize them. So that's really the first step there, is to know where you're spending the money.
Okay, so when you say categorize them, Lisa, what do you mean? Like what categories should we be putting things into?
Well, one category would be your fixed expenses. So the easy part is rent, if you're paying rent or your mortgage. What's your average utilities costs? Those types of things. Put those in. You want to put in your food. And I'd have a food category, and one of them could be grocery bills, and the other one could be versus eating out. So, and that includes your Starbucks, right? All of that, and categorize that. You can have other entertainment, any tickets that you have if you go to certain events, or it could be concert tickets or movies or whatever that is, tracking that. Your subscriptions is a whole separate category by itself. It's very sneaky, and I think you'll be surprised at some of the subscriptions that you have that you might not realize, and how much they're actually costing you in total.
It can be scary. Okay, so we're going to categorize all of our expenses. Okay, so got that. But you mentioned writing it down, and I still like writing things down. I guess we could also use a spreadsheet for that. But there are all these apps out there as well, Lisa, aren't there? I mean, are they any good? Would you advise us to maybe look at downloading one of those to help us track our spending?
I definitely would. As you said, you can do paper and pen. You can also do a spreadsheet on your own if you're comfortable with that. But there are a lot of apps and tools out there, and some of them are free. And they're very easy to use. And so one of them is called Mint. And they will just automatically track your expenses for you. Another one is called You Need a Budget. And that's another app that you can take a look at. And another one is called Every Dollar. And some of these apps, they're free, and some of them, they can connect directly to your credit cards and to your banks, and they will automatically upload all your expenses and categorize them for you. And that is a great way of doing that, because if you've got a free tool and it just categorizes everything for you, then you can really see exactly where you're spending your money. And it's eye-opening.
Okay, well, I love that because number one, I don't really know what I'm doing. And number two, I don't have a lot of time. So I could see that app route really working for someone like me who is, still very much in learning mode when it comes to becoming financially literate. And also, I just don't have the time. And so if I could have an app that literally, records things as I'm going, that's perfect for me. So we will link to those apps actually in the description of the podcast, because I can see those being really, really useful for lots of women out there. Okay, and do some people like doing like a bit of both? I mean, could you do that, for example?
You can do both. And I think if you first try one of these apps, take a look at those three that we mentioned would be a good starting point, and see which one I think might work for you. Try those apps, and then you can add in, if there's certain things you want to track on your own separately, then you can do that, because then you know what the app will do for you. And some people like to have that tracked manually, especially if it's a larger purchase or something like that they might want to track separately. And that can be helpful as well. But as you said, especially for us busy moms and trying to take care of everything else, time is such a significant factor in our lives. And what we're trying to do is empower women and help women find ways to be able to do this without taking up too much of your time. And that's where these apps can really help a lot.
Yeah, I love that. I actually might suggest that my husband uses these, because I see him doing our monthly finances, and he spends an entire weekend doing it. Now, granted, he enjoys that. My brain kind of isn't wired that way. So I wouldn't go as far as to say, I would enjoy dedicating a full weekend every month to, finances. And frankly, I don't have the time, because my weekends are absolutely chock-packed full of doing stuff with the kids, running them around places and all those other things. Okay, so how often then should we be tracking our finances? Obviously, we can use one of these apps and they can track our daily spend, but are you saying that we should still be, maybe putting an hour aside every week or every a couple of hours a month to just kind of assess the overall picture? Like, how often is what I'm asking you, Lisa, should we be checking in with our finances and our tracking?
Well, I think if you do it manually, it'll take you more time. So you need to have more time for that.
Okay.
If you use an app, it'll take significantly less time, right? Because all of the loading and categorization has been done for you for your expenses. I really recommend that you do a quick look at it every week, and you have expenses that you are tracking on a weekly basis. But I don't even think it needs to take an hour.
Really?
I think you could take, if you've got an app and you can just go through it quickly, I think you could take 15 minutes, take a look at where your expenses are, and is that where you want your expenses to be, or was there something unusual that came up, or you're spending more than you think? And then on a monthly basis, then I think spending anywhere between half an hour and an hour, really go through it and really look at where your expenses are and where you, compared to where you thought you were by category. And that can take a little bit more time. So that might be, but that's if you have an app. And that's where I think the apps can really help out a lot and see, okay, I thought I was spending this amount. You know, you also have to include things like credit card fees and track those. And it's amazing when you look at it. But if you look at it a little bit, just on a weekly basis, and then do more of a review on a monthly basis, it keeps it more top of mind for you. So you're always thinking about, where are my expenses, and am I on track or I'm not on track with where I thought my expenses would be?
Okay, so let's say we are following this model and we're doing a really good job of checking our expenses, and we realize, oh God, you know, I'm overspending here. I'm not on track. Like, where are the areas, like the typical, you know, oh my gosh, you need to do better in that area. Where should we be looking to improve, I guess is what I'm asking you, Lisa.
So I did this. I went through all my expenses, and then I put together, once I had all my expenses, then I put together, okay, here's where I think I can reduce my costs. Where can I reduce? What am I comfortable with? Because some things, like, you still want to be able to go out, but maybe you say, I'm going to go out half as often to dinner as I was before. Those types of things. Some of the things that I personally found where I could make some reductions, and then I would compare my actual expenses that I'm tracking with, am I on track? Did I make the improvements that I thought I was going to make? And if not, well, maybe there's someplace else I can reduce my costs a little bit more, kind of keep myself on track. And one of them was that daily coffee, you know, that daily Starbucks or something like that, that you're doing. And it's a hard habit to break.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it's really tough, but it adds up so much more than you'd think that it would. And I realized that during COVID, because I wasn't going to Starbucks on my way to work every day. And I was like, wow, that was kind of a nice reduction in my expenses.
Here's the thing, though. This is where I struggle, and this is why I need your help to change my mindset. So I view my coffee habit as a reward for doing all the stuff that us women and us mums have to do in a day. And so there's definitely a psychology here, because, you know, breaking that habit, it is hard, and I treat myself to a coffee because I think I've earned it. I deserve it. And so how do we go about breaking these? And, you know, coffee's my thing, but it could be, you know, you could be, our listeners could have something else that they spend money on, and they just, you know, it might be wine, it might be whatever it is. And it's just difficult to break that cycle. So, like, how do we, seriously, I need some help here with willpower. Lisa, how do we go about breaking something that has become so entrenched in our daily lives?
I think if we can break it down from a daily thing to something less than daily, helps. Because once you break out of a daily habit, whatever that is, then it's easier to start taking it back further. But trying to cut it out completely is a really tough thing to do. So but that's something, if it's a daily sort of thing, and coffee is one of those ones. You know, another one is food, eating out. That's a big one, that there's a lot of opportunities for entertainment, which could be any tickets, anything like that. The opposite of like coffee can be, you know, that glass of wine, maybe reducing how much, you know, wine or whatever spirit you like to drink or something. Alcohol is very, very expensive. And reducing that, it's
It's
even
crazy
healthier for you.
expensive.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, sure. Healthy on so many levels. The other thing is, some of the things that we're just discussing right now, and my latte habit included, we can do these things at home.
Right.
There's nothing stopping me going to my favorite coffee shop, Bird Rock Coffee Roasters, buying a bag of coffee, making the coffee at home, and, even investing in like a little, I don't know, one of those steamers or whatever to make it all frothy. But if I were to do that at home, I would save myself. Oh my God. I mean, my lattes must be around $6 when I order them because I do oat milk and all the fancy add-ons. And so that's another thing. Some of these things that we go out and enjoy, we can replicate them at home.
Even going out to eat in restaurants, we can replicate that at home by meeting friends at at each other's homes for dinner.
There's something else. We started doing this during COVID too, actually. So I think you and I have discussed before that we would regularly go out for dinner on a Friday with the kids, not anywhere particularly fancy, but nevertheless, when there's four of you eating out, it adds up. Well, during COVID, we wanted to support the local restaurant, so we started getting a takeout on Fridays. Now, okay, so it's still more expensive than potentially me cooking at home, clearly. But quite often on a Friday, certainly my husband and I will get a takeout, and the fact that we're getting it to go, it's saving money there because we're not spending money on drinks, for example. And I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but I will order a drink of something. And depending where we are, I may have a cocktail. And cocktails are blooming expensive, certainly in San Diego.
Yes.
But anyway, so I think even, we've talked about not going cold turkey all the time. Maybe there's a halfway house, like a compromise. And even something like getting takeout instead of actually eating at your favorite restaurant is a bit of a compromise because you're going to save money there. So just something to consider, and something that we do that definitely does bring down our spending on restaurants and eating out.
Definitely. So just again, that's a perfect example of reducing it, making ways to reduce that expense, but still have the enjoyment of eating out sometimes and all of that. But it's also, travel. How much do we spend on travel, and where do we go, and how can we reduce the cost for some of that? Because there's a huge variation in the cost, even like the type of hotel that you stay at, or if you're going someplace and you've got family there, maybe you visit family and stay with them instead of a hotel, as long as you enjoy spending that much time with your family. Or it can be just for dry cleaning. I reduced the amount of dry cleaning that I was doing.
Yes.
I mean, that adds up. So, and even looking at buying clothes, trying to buy clothes that don't require dry cleaning. Because dry cleaning is expensive too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um,
It's expensive and it's a pain. It really is expensive. And then that's just another thing on our plate that we have to do. I know that my husband, especially because he's in business dress all the time. And during COVID, like his bill for dry cleaning pretty much like evaporated. And it's kind of crept back up because he is in the office more, he's traveling more for work. But yeah, I mean, that's something that A, is expensive. B, again, that type of thing tends to fall on us. It's, it's another thing to add to our list. And who's got the time to drive to the dry cleaners and mess around with that? I mean, I don't. That's something that I would have to factor into my already busy day. So yeah, you're right. And I know this sounds like silly, but on the subject of clothes and dry cleaning, you don't necessarily have to get your clothes dry cleaned every time you've worn them either. I know that like if I have a dress, unless there's like a stain on it or it's just, needs a freshen up, I don't take it to the dry cleaner immediately. Right. And so I think, just being a little prudent, I guess, about, how many times, if you are using the dry cleaner, that you're actually going. Do you really need to dry clean everything if you've only worn it once? And maybe you've only worn it once for a few hours. And then I would guess, maybe you don't need to do that. So just some practical things that I'm thinking that creep up in my everyday life and our family life where we could potentially cut back. So you know what I'm hearing here? That actually tracking our expenses, rather than it needing to be like a fearful experience and something that we dread doing. So it's like, oh my God, I'm doing so badly. This is out of control. Actually, if you can start this habit of tracking your expenses, this is empowering, and this actually may be something that we kind of enjoy in a geeky way because we know exactly what's going on. And one of the reasons I like the idea of those apps, which I'm definitely going to look into for myself, is that I can do that on the go, and it's very much that's me. I'm in control of that. It's nothing to do with my husband. He hasn't got that app on my phone. It's me with my app on my phone tracking my expenses. And so I like the independence that gives as well.
Well, and part of it with the app too is while you're waiting for your kids to get out of their dance class or their sporting event, you can look at the app on your phone wherever you are, and you can just take a few minutes and just look at it. It doesn't have to be something that you have a major, block of time to do this every month.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I think is such an anxiety-provoking idea to me when it comes to finances is I don't know where to start, and I don't think I have the time. And so breaking it down like this, finances are a huge umbrella, but this tracking your expenses, that's something that's, we're biting it off into manageable portions, and, us just focusing on that, helping ourselves out by these apps and other kind of time-saving, hacks, if you like. I think it makes it more palatable, especially for women that are busy and mums that we have crazy lives. So I love that. Aside from it being like a now thing, a daily thing, how is this going to put us in good stead for the future when it comes to actually then, looking at other things to do with our money, saving money, investing money, all of that? Does that put us in a good position to then progress to, some of the fun stuff, which is what you can actually do with spare money?
Well, if you track your expenses and you have a budget, right? And you have a certain amount that you put for savings and investments, right? That you've got set aside, that you're setting aside a percentage every month of your income for some sort of saving or investment. Then with the other expenses that you have and the other money that you have set aside for expenses, if you spend less on that, you can say, well, maybe at the end of the month, I'll treat myself to something because I spent less over here and I still had the money that's set aside for savings and investments. And maybe there's something that you do at the end of the month to help, celebrate that and do something fun. Or maybe you set aside some of that money for that vacation that you want to take. And that's the money that you use then for a vacation. And so that's how it can be a really nice positive for you, because maybe you'll enjoy that vacation more than just having that cup of coffee every day. One of the things that I found for myself personally, for example, was my cell phone bill. So I have two sons in their early 20s. They're still on my cell phone bill. And I actually went through my cell phone bill and I went through the details and I talked to the cell company, and there were expenses in there that were totally unnecessary. And so I actually went down and had them walk me through my bill. I went in person because doing this on the phone and the chat bot is not helpful at all with this. So I actually went in person and it saved me $100 a month. And that's on a cell bill. And that's something that I didn't even know.
Wow.
And they were charging for things that we didn't even need or use at all. And I was shocked because I was like, the cell phone bills are so complex and so confusing now. And I just got irritated because I just don't like it when I'm getting billed for something I don't understand. And I just never took the time, because it's complex, to really look at it.
Yeah.
So again, I went down to their store and I said, walk me through this bill. And I questioned everything and I saved over $100 a month. So those are, when you go through that level of detail. Now, it took some time for me to do that, but it was one time for me to do that. And I'm happy to do that and spend that half hour one time and get that kind of result for something that I didn't need to be spending money on at all.
But I think that if we can get into a habit of starting to track our expenses and really feeling like we're on top of them, and we're more importantly knowledgeable about everything that's coming out of our account, I think that then translates into us being more confident generally about finances. And so maybe you do have, you are feeling emboldened to go and start quizzing companies about how much they're charging you, because you know what's going on. You're not in the dark anymore. So I love that. I absolutely love that. And like I mentioned earlier, we will absolutely link to some of these apps in the description. And yeah, this has been great, Lisa. I feel that, I'm ready to start tracking my expenses, which is something I haven't done before properly. So this is good. And I think we should circle back in and see how this is going. And I'd love, for our listeners, share with us how you track your expenses. I'd love to know how you do it, because I'm just starting on this road. So do you find apps useful? Do you use a spreadsheet? Let us know your thoughts.
That would be great. And I think it is, as you said, Claire, it's very empowering when you're tracking your expenses and you know where your expenses are going. And when you feel empowered, then you feel more in control. And you don't feel like your expenses and your money is just flying out the window and you don't even know where it's all going. So it is an important first step.
So that brings us to the end of another episode of Fearless Money Management. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave us a review. Your support helps us to reach even more amazing women on their journey to financial freedom. Bye for now.